Welcome to Carl and Heather Present,
the podcast where we dive into the insights, challenges, and humor of being married to someone who is nothing like you.
Are you ready?
Let's go.
Oh, don't you know it's Carl and Heather Present Marriage Podcast.
What's up, everybody? The Tennessee Hills are alive with the sound of Carl and Heather Present. Franklin, Tennessee is home to the groundbreaking technological wonder that is the Carl and Heather Present Studios, located in the offices of Behold Ministries and International Podcast Headquarters. We're brimming today with excitement. Our scientific research team has concluded their most recent data analysis of the podcast listener base, and the results are in.
Let's hear.
We are in the 99 percentile for growth among podcasts less than a year old.
Nice.
Isn't that great?
I love it.
It's exciting news. Our listener base is growing. And I was looking today, I want to shout out Germany.
Oh.
Somebody in Germany's listening to the podcast and checking in pretty regular. So it's our largest international audience.
Amazing.
Shout out Germany.
Yay.
It's like we're the David Hasselhoff of marriage podcasts.
Do people
Do you
even
know
know
who David Hasselhoff is?
Okay.
Yeah.
And what do you know about David Hasselhoff? He was big in Germany.
Germany. That's
German
right.
pop
Yeah.
star. That's
Okay.
right. He was also
Norm Macdonald always reminded everyone of that on SNL.
Norm Macdonald,
That
gosh,
is
what an icon. I
That's a
love that.
throwback
R.I.P.
too. I love it.
Welcome to the podcast,
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah, hey, and we're joined today by our friends, longtime friends, Daniel and Jamie Hurd. I think I first met you guys through some mutual friends of ours, the Fikes.
Yep.
And Daniel, you helped us buy some houses, close on our houses,
Yeah.
right?
Daniel is
houses.
the attorney that for a couple of houses has made me sign all those papers
Yeah.
that I never
That's
read.
right.
or
That we
looked
never
at.
read, and we trusted that.
I looked them all over, and they were great. That's
We
what I was
trusted
in.
you in that. Yeah.
All of this is in order.
Yeah.
That's what
And
Daniel said.
you guys live here, well, in Brentwood. Have 3 kids, and you've been married for 17 years next month.
Yep.
What's the date?
May 17th.
May 17th. Happy early anniversary.
Thanks.
Yeah.
That's
Almost
awesome.
Yep.
Yay. Well, good.
Yeah.
Well, we're glad you're here.
Yeah, glad to be here. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Okay. So let's start this way. Tell us how you guys met.
So we met. I had transferred in college to the University of Tennessee my sophomore year,
Okay.
where Jamie was already attending school, and we met at the end of the first semester that I moved there in Hodges Library
Okay.
on UT's campus, and we were there probably both pretending to study for finals in December of that first semester, and we met each other through some mutual friends and exchanged information that first time that we met. And,
Instant messenger names. That's what we exchanged.
Oh, instant messenger.
You're all
That's what-
familiar with Instant
Yeah.
Messenger.
I am.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we exchanged names.
Yeah, this is true.
Yeah.
And then after Christmas break, we came back to school and went on a first date. And
With another couple that had met at the library during finals. And
Aw.
yep.
Do you still, did they make it?
Yeah, they made
they're
it.
still married.
No,
That's
Yep.
awesome.
Still married. They actually got married. We dated 5.5 years.
Oh, wow.
Because we finished school and then Daniel went on to law school and we waited till after he was done with law school.
Oh, wow.
And they got married right out of college. So they've been married longer than we
wow.
have.
Wow. Did you go to school
cool.
here in Nashville, law school?
I stayed at UT. Yeah,
Oh,
it was
okay,
in Knoxville.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was finished at UT undergrad and then stayed for law school there.
Okay. Wow. So you dated 5.5 years. Was it love at first sight when y'all saw each other?
I think there was an instant attraction.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. We kind of hit it off and just started chatting, and like I said, didn't get much studying done,
You're so busy
time
on
we met.
AOL Instant Messenger.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
And then it was kind of nice. We went home for a month. I'm from Pennsylvania and he's from here in Franklin. And
Yeah.
so we left school for a month. And so we would talk to each other on the phone
Okay.
all during Christmas break. And then when we got back in January, we were so excited to see each other and then went
Yeah.
on a date and then
Aw.
dated. I left when we graduated together. He stayed for law school. I stayed for a year at UT and got my master's in education. And then the last 2 years of law school, I moved to Atlanta and taught second grade. And so we were long distance and then got engaged for long distance and then moved here and got married.
Yeah.
He graduated from law school one weekend and we got married the next weekend.
Oh, wow.
So
Busy time.
Yeah. Whirlwind.
That's awesome.
Whirlwind
Yep.
romance.
That's great.
I love it. So, I was your worship pastor at a church that you attended.
Yes.
And, for
My
several
favorite.
years. Oh, you're very kind.
Yeah.
So we got to know each other a little bit then, but then we had moved away, and you guys went through a family tragedy while we were away.
Yes.
And I got a call from the guys at church, and they had said that you guys had reached out to see if Heather and I would come back to sing at the memorial of your son.
That's right.
And we said yes, of course, because we love you guys, and it was a privilege to be asked to enter into something like that with people, and especially in you guys' situations, circumstances. And then I became your worship pastor again because I moved back to that church, and then but that was really at that memorial service, and then following when we moved back to Tennessee, we just got to know you guys, got to watch you walk through what's for many people the darkest road that you'll ever have to walk, and the deepest sadness for parents and things like that. And Heather and I watched you walk out your faith, try and stay faithful. I'm sure struggling, to stay afloat, many times, but still somehow manage to keep walking by faith and trusting Jesus with your testimony. When I hear you speak, when I see you, it's inspiring. And I think maybe you guys might have something to share in your story. And really, for people who are married and walking through similar things that our listeners might find some hope in. So I just wanted you guys to be on the podcast, tell your story, and talk to us, and share a little bit of the journey and how it's going.
Yeah. So when you got married almost 17 years ago, most people stand up and they say all these things like in sickness and in health, for better, for worse, right?
Sure.
But I don't think any of us probably prepare for the worst. We think about all the good things and the better things, the richer things, all the positives out of that. And you guys, like Carl said, experience probably for most of us what we would say would be the worst, one of the worst things you can experience in life. So, could we start out by just maybe you guys walking us through that day in December, kind of what happened, so people who are listening can understand where we're coming from?
Absolutely.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, we had gotten married, and we had Madeline, our daughter. She was 4. We had William, our son. He was 2. And so we were done having kids. We had a boy and a girl. Kind of thought, we honestly, in November, we had left a weekend with some friends, and we were driving home, and we're like, man, things are just going really well. Like everything, our jobs were great. Our kids were great. It was amazing. And we verbalize that, like, things are going really well. This is awesome. And in December, on December 11th, I got up and I went to work, and it was right before lunch, and 2 coworkers came to my door, and they said something happened to William. He choked at lunch and is not breathing. And we had very different experiences that day. But at that moment, I knew that he had died. Like, as soon as those coworkers said that, I was like, okay, this is, because that morning I woke up early and was praying for the Lord's will to be done. And I just kind of spent some extra time and it was like, Lord, whatever it is you have for me, I'm here for it. And just give me the strength to get through it. And just kind of stayed in that for a little bit. And as soon as they said that to me, I was like, okay, this is it. I know it's not good, but it's gonna be okay. You've got me in this. And so I immediately left work. I called friends and I was like, I need you praying. Like, something has happened with William. He's choked. He's not breathing. And I went to Williamson Medical Center, and Daniel was at our house.
Yeah. So Jamie was working. She was a teacher at a private school in Nashville. So she was a little further away from our home on the south end of Brentwood,
Okay.
which is where we still live today. And my office is only about 5 minutes up the road,
Right.
kind of in the heart of Brentwood there. And so we had a nanny at the time that would be at the house with our young children who were not school age yet, and she had she called me. I don't know if she'd probably tried to call, both of us. She got a hold of me and just said, and she was very panicked. I was at my office, and I just remember, it's kind of a blur, but I remember her saying that William's choked. I'm unable to clear this obstruction, and I've called the paramedics. I've called 911. I can't remember if they were there yet or on their way, and I was just terrified and just dropped everything I was doing and jumped in the car and ran home and pulled up to the house, and there was first responders at the house, and just a surreal, numbing experience to walk into the house, and they had William in the floor in the kitchen, tending to him and trying to do CPR and trying to work on. I remember one of the first responders walked over with me and sat down with me and kind of to catch me up on what had been going on, and they just said that they thought they were making progress, but they were having trouble clearing this obstruction that was that he had choked at lunch, and they were ready. They needed to get him in the ambulance to get him to the hospital as quickly as possible, and so that's kind of where we went from there. We jumped in the ambulance and headed to the hospital, and Jamie, like she said, she'd been notified by then, and so she headed that way. So we met at the hospital.
And I think the paramedic even had told you that they had seen someone come back from this. Didn't she? She said that. Yeah.
There was a fair amount of hopeful discussion, and it sounded. I mean, his color did not look good, and he was just totally lifeless. But they were working very hard on him, and she. I think honestly and earnestly was telling me that she felt like they were making progress, and that she had seen good results in situations like these. And so I left there completely numb and terrified, but also with some hope that there could be a good result. And I remember calling a handful of parents, some church friends, some church leaders. I remember I called Tom Claggett. Y'all remember Claggett? He was our
small group leader.
He was our community group leader at the time.
Oh, wow.
Anyways, had lots of people praying for us before we even got to the hospital. So that's what it looked like.
Really, when I got there, I had beat the ambulance to the hospital, and so I was kind of waiting, and it pulls in, and I remember standing there, and they took this tiny little stretcher out of the ambulance, and I just saw his little face and his little eyes, and I was like, he's gone. I know. It was just, he looked very, his eyes looked so empty. And they took him in, and it was a hectic scene. Nurses, doctors are trying to work on him and everything. And it was, Tom shows up at the hospital. Some families start showing up, and they just say, we're doing all we can. His heart was not beating. And so I knew that he was gone. And I was just like, okay, all these people are going to watch this little boy die. It was like the Holy Spirit I've never experienced in a way came over me and was like, carrying me through this, and was like, okay, they're going to watch this little boy die. Like, I want people to know that God is still good when they watch this little boy die. And so, like, I'm kind of rehearsing in my head. We're kind of standing together, and I'm just like, I know he's gone. I never even prayed for a miracle that the Lord just gave me such a peace, which sounds weird, but I didn't even pray for him to make it. And so, but then at the last second there, they said, this is the last time we can give him medicine to get his heart to start beating. And his heart started beating again. And they said, we need to transfer him to Vanderbilt. So there was never any sign of brain activity, but they did get his heart to start beating. And so then he was transferred to Vanderbilt. And when we got to Vanderbilt, tons of people were there. Okay. And they took him back and got him stable back in the back. And I just remember that waiting room filling up of tons of people just loving on us and praying. I mean, people we didn't know were just leading little prayer circles and stuff. And I just remember sitting in that room and kind of wanting to scream, like, okay, what happens now? Like, do we have to decide when to like pull the plug on our 2-year-old, or like, how does this all end? Yeah. Like, he's back there. He now looks like he's sleeping, but there was never any sign of brain activity. I knew he was gone, but it was like, how does this end? What happens now? And as weird as it sounds, there was a sweetness in that hospital of those people coming to see him, and even going back there and praying with them. I remember just the room, you felt the presence of the Lord in that hospital room in such a sweet way. And so that night, people start leaving and everything, and our doctor came, and she said, through friends of a friend, she finally heard, and it was like 11 o'clock at night, and she came and she said, Jamie, she said, our kids are barred from above. And I was like, it was a hard truth to hear in that moment, but it was like, man, what a gift to have a pediatrician that in that moment is going to come and share that truth with you and be there with you in it. And then we got back to the room when it was just Daniel and I. And, so now it's nearly midnight. And my mind immediately goes to, not only have we lost our son, but now our marriage is in trouble. And I instantly went to, I know the statistics are so high of people losing a child that get divorced. And I look at Daniel and I was like, I think I can get through this, but you cannot leave me. And he was like, what? I mean, he was just like, our son is back. Like, it just, kind of blew his mind. It's like, why would you even think that? Of course I won't, and everything. But that's immediately where my mind went, is not only now we're going to lose our son, but man, this is going to be really hard on our marriage.
Yeah. Do you remember her saying that?
Yeah. Yeah. And I just remember kind of, it was just, kind of the furthest thing from my mind. And thought it was an interesting point. I think I probably knew that people that lost children, if I didn't know then, I knew shortly thereafter that people that lose children, I think, marriages oftentimes don't survive in those situations, unfortunately. And it was the furthest thing from my mind. We were still very much in the thick of it, so it was it was interesting that she even had that thought right then.
Wow. Yeah. So some events occurred the next day. We're going to come back to those, but ultimately William passed. And I'm curious to know, like, grief looks different for different people.
Yeah.
And so how did you each grieve? And was there a, did it impact your marriage in the early days, or how did it impact your marriage? Did you see that at all?
We immediately went into counseling.
Okay.
And luckily the church was like, you can have counseling as long as you want. We will provide counseling for you. And that was really helpful. Not that we couldn't have afforded it, but I think a lot of people, it's like, do I really want to spend $150 on an hour of this? Right. There would have been some hesitation there, and it just wasn't. And it was like, as long as you need to go. So we did grieve differently. I think men and women grieve differently. I'm way more emotional, cry a lot. I still cry a lot. And so we tried to communicate that. I think we both realized how important it was to let each other know how we were feeling. But I feel like counseling really did help kind of make us, even we would not have walked through that day. I mean, that day was very different for us. And the first time we heard each other's point of view of that day was in counseling, when when the counselor was like, what is something that you don't really want to talk about, and like a rabbit hole you don't want to go down? And I was like, that day, I just don't. And he's like, okay, so let's talk about what happened that day. I'm like, well, I feel like you just tricked me there. And I'm kind of mad. But it was really good because we wouldn't have sat around and talked about what was it like for you when you came home and saw them working on what, like we wouldn't have talked about that.
Right.
And so counseling was really important. And that's why I always recommend couples to go to counseling after a loss, or really, I think everyone needs counseling. But that was very important and helped us recognize that we did grieve differently, and maybe some strategies to help with that.
Yeah. I think probably my tendency, you don't really know what your tendencies are until you get thrown into that, right?
Yeah, right.
And I could pretty quickly see that I think mine would have been probably to withdraw.
Yeah.
And just kind of, like I knew and appreciated and valued, like we are so blessed with the friends and community we had around us during that time and still have. And we've come to know, having come out on the other side of it and met tons of people that have experienced what we have, that is somewhat rare to have quite the kind of support we had. But I could see and appreciate how great it was to have that, and at the same time, it was just I could feel myself just kind of wanting to be like, man, I just don't want to dig into this,
Oh man.
And but I knew that I needed to, and I knew that we needed to kind of together, because you just get in your own head, and you're hurting, and marriage takes work in good times for everything, to work together and have a successful marriage, and so in times like those, it's particularly difficult, and I can see why the failure rates are so high. But by the grace of God, I guess just kind of had the clarity to say, like, hey, let's pause and do this together,
and that's so wise.
And we did, and I'm so glad we did, because it forced both of us, but me particularly, probably it forced me in particular to kind of see and hear how she had experienced this. And that's helpful. It's just, it's every bit as catastrophic and hurtful for her as it was for me. So to get to be able to understand what she was experiencing, and to try to, I'd have good days and she'd have bad days, and vice versa. And so, you can try to pour into each other when, pick each other up when you see each other kind of falling. So anyways,
you guys are so gracious and brave to talk about just this whole story and just tell us the story. And I've heard you speak a lot about it, and I love the story, the thread of your community, your people that know you, that showed up the hospital. I remember when all that was happening, and it was such a great reminder of why we need each other in the family of faith. And even among people, family of faith, I'm going to ask you guys to weigh in on something, because when somebody goes through what you went through, people know it, and they're watching you, and they really want to know what to say. They want to say something. And people usually fall into one of two camps. They say too much, and they just get over their skis, and there's just words coming out, and they don't say anything, and they're just quiet. But I wonder if you could talk about maybe a couple of things that you've learned through that process. What were the ways that people were able to speak to you or touch your heart when you were going through this that might help somebody like us that's got a friend that's going through it? What would you say to that?
That's a great question, because I think people want to say something, they want to do something,
Totally.
but you don't know what to say.
Right.
And I always say, there were times that I saw people in the grocery store and knew that they saw me and they turned around and walked away because they didn't know what to say. And so I think I say, there's a mom's group that meets once a month that have all lost children. And I always, you can't be mad at someone. Like I always say, extend so much grace to people because they don't know what to say. They don't know what to do. But to me, saying something is better than saying nothing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I always say, even saying, I don't know what to say right now to you. You know, I'm praying for you. I don't know what to say. You know, but then I also think it's important for the person going through it to extend grace, because you don't want to make someone feel bad then for trying to say something. And so I remember after the memorial, someone came up and was like, I could write a book on things not to say. And I was like, they just showed up to a memorial of a 2-year-old. It would have been a lot easier for them not to come,
Right.
you know, but they showed up. So to me, showing up is very important. You don't have anything to offer them. The words you say are not going to relieve any of their pain, but just showing up and being there, dropping something off, not expecting anything in return. I think that's big, of truly sacrificially serving that person, walking through it in ways of, you know, we had someone, they barely knew us. They dropped off all these paper plates and different like paper products and stuff. And I was like, that is so helpful. That is so tangible.
Yeah, right.
We have so many people at our house. We don't want to be doing dishes, you know, anything.
Right.
And, you know, and I bet she thought, I don't know what to do, but here's something I can do.
Yeah.
And it's like that, it was really meaningful to people that just showed up and even said, I don't even know what to do, but I want you to know that I'm praying for you. And so I think also encourage people, whenever you feel the Spirit bring that person to mind, to just reach out to them and say, you are on my heart today, because the Lord uses that. And I have people in my life that, I mean, still do that. And it just, God is in the details of, you wouldn't believe what I was walking through that moment or that day that I needed to hear. I am still thought of and prayed for, and not alone. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I remember. I think what'll happen is you'll just say, you know, let me know if there's anything we can do for you, and and of course there's really nothing, you know, and I remember just some of my close friends just like, you know, maybe after doing that a time or two, and it's just like, no, we're good, you know. Then they just started showing up.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just like, I think what I remember is that as quickly as was reasonable after what we went through, friends of mine started treating me normal again, you know, and like, let's go play golf together. Let's go grab a beer together.
Right.
Let's, you know, and like, and it not need to be like super deep or weird. It was just like, we just, you know, just want to be around you, you know? So
that's a great insight.
Yeah.
But what a good gift from some good brothers.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go back to December 12th. So December 11th was the day.
What year was this?
2015.
2015. Okay.
So December 12th, you wake up. Tell us about that day.
Yeah, they had told us that we were meeting with the What's Next guy.
Okay.
And I kind of thought he was going to help us plan a funeral. And we sit down in the meeting. I remember my mom's there, a friend's there.
By this point, we've had, you know, just for the listeners, I guess, we've had lots of discussions with the attending physicians, and we're in and out of the room, and they're,
Okay.
you know, they're running all kinds of tests, and by now we you know, the news has kind of gotten worse and worse and worse,
Okay.
basically. And so we've spent the night in a little room there, and And so now that's how.
Yeah, so it's been determined. There was never any sign of brain activity. So it wasn't this up and down, like he might make it, he's not going to make it. By the time we got to the hospital, there's no improvement from his heart had started to beat, but that was it.
Yeah.
And so we sit down and this guy introduces himself and he said, my name's Tony. I'm from Tennessee Donor Services. And I was like, oh. And he was like, I'd love to present the option of organ donation to you guys. And I had been praying, Lord, how does this end? Like, what happens now? And he kind of walked us through organ donation. And he said, this is an opportunity to, impact someone else's life. And here's all the ways, I forget the number. It was amazing. The number of ways just his little body could have impacted, how many people he could have helped. And he's kind of walking through it. And I remember just looking at Daniel, and we didn't even really talk about it. And we were just kind of like, yeah, that we're in. And for me, it was the answer of how does this end? And he kind of, you have to go through kind of, I was actually talking with some friends the other day about this, and they were widows, and so they talked about it with losing their spouse. But you have to go through this long list of like, are you okay with giving this part and this part? It's kind of like nitty gritty into all this, and I think we were like, okay, just any of it, like all, like we don't need to hear all that stuff, just like any and all of it. And I think there was some misinformation that I thought about organ donation. I was like, we wanted an open casket. And so it was like, man, if we do this, could you have an open casket and stuff like that? So he was there to answer all those questions, which we could. But we just said yes. And I remember thinking, sitting in that room, if there are other parents out there in a hospital with their child that are like begging for a little more time with them, if they could get 3 more days, or if they could get 3 years, 30 years with them because of our son's life, I'm in. Like, I remember thinking, this is so awful. If we can help someone to not experience this, let's do it. And so we said yes. And the cool thing was also that with that, it actually, so he choked on a Friday, and they said, we'll keep him alive likely until Monday, because they'll try to match as many organs as possible. Okay. And so that to us kind of seems weird, like you're drawing that out. But like I said, there was a sweetness. He looked like he was sleeping. And so those next couple days in the hospital, my sister was in Europe at the time. She was able to fly back. Like, so many of our friends and family. I remember talking to some people and like, you don't have to come if you don't want to come here, but if you want to come, you're more than welcome to come and say goodbye. And there was, the presence of the Lord was in that room. And I think even from that moment, the Lord used this of impacting people's lives, watching our son die to give him glory. Like, there was even an impact. You walked in the room, we had worship music playing. I mean, it was just, I think even those moments were impactful for people. This sweet nurse at Vanderbilt, her name's Jillian, and she was there Friday, and then every day she like said goodbye and then left, and she would come back the next day and she was like, I just couldn't leave him. And she stayed with us every day. Her little boyfriend brought her stuff. They're now married. They have 3 boys. One of them's William. Like, it just like,
oh wow,
it was a really sweet time, and we got some time together with William, just alone. Family came and just were able to say goodbye.
Yeah, that was something that, like, in the chaos of it, it was just, there were moments where I'm just thinking, like, what are we doing here? This is so, like, I cannot even believe this is happening. But then, fast forward and you come out on the other side, and you can so easily see the mercies in that, just what a blessing it was to have that time to, to say good. I mean, there's just so many incredible memories that we, like she said, I mean, it was a terrible situation, but it was, we got opportunities to spend time with him and say goodbye and allow loved ones to do the same that tons of people in that situation don't get, so that was it was pretty amazing.
So you said yes to organ donation.
We did. And we heard when we were there that which people don't know this, but we just overheard a nurse that said his heart went to Chicago, his liver was going to Texas, and his kidneys were going as a block to North Carolina.
Okay.
So his 2 little kidneys went as a block to a 45-year-old man in North Carolina.
Okay.
So we just, which I didn't even know this was a thing. So we said yes and overheard that. And so Monday morning, he was wheeled down to the transplant surgery, and halfway through the surgery, they turn off the ventilator. So that's kind of how it ends. And we went back to our house Monday, to a very empty, quieter house. And then Tuesday, friends started coming over, and we started making memory boards, printing all these pictures and stuff. And I remember my best friend from high school came over, or from growing up, and came over, and she had flown in, and she said, "Did they tell you about Ava?" And I was like, "What?" And they said, "We think we know where William's heart went." And I was like, "What?" And some of my friends like, "We weren't going to tell her." And she's like, "Well, I'm telling her." And I'm like, what's happening? And we watch a news story from the Chicago News of a little girl, Ava Martin. She had waited 111 days for a heart. The news had followed them. And so we literally saw a cooler being wheeled into the operating room, the surgeon taking out William's heart and saying, "Welcome to your new home." And Amy and Brian got interviewed. I remember they were standing right in front of the elevator at Lurie Children's Hospital, and they said, "We are so thankful for the people that gave light in their darkest hour, that chose to give life to our little girl, and we will honor their life for the rest of Ava's." And I was like, I love them.
Oh my gosh.
I love them. I was like, I'm going to reach out. There was a whole Facebook page and everything. And I was like, I'm going to reach out to them. And I look over at Daniel, and he's like, "No, like, just
Really, don't do it.
like, slow down." Just like, I mean, just slow down. And I was like, no. I'll just like send her a message. And I was like, I don't know if this is it, but here's what happened to William. And regardless, I'm so excited for you guys and Ava, and we'll be praying for her. And within 30 minutes, I get a message back and said Ava's was the only pediatric heart transplant at Lurie's yesterday.
Wow.
And they knew the weight of the donor, which we knew from a picture I had taken. And so Amy and I instantly knew and connected. And Ava has an older sister, Ella. And so started talking about Ella. And then I started talking about Madeline, William's older sister. And we just connected that night upon like no other. And she even sent me she had recorded the William's heart after the transplant and sent me like the image. And we had recorded William's heart before he went. And she was like, "This is the sweetest sound." She said, "It's so strong." And so
Man.
it was unreal. And how that happened, friends of ours on Facebook were friends of Amy. So like her friend was posting stuff about Ava, and my friend was posting stuff about William. And they were like, "Wait a second, like this little boy passed away. This little girl got a heart," and they were the ones that connected it. So, and then the next day, Lurie, normally it doesn't happen like that. And so the next day, Lurie's Children said, "We can confirm we did fly to Nashville." So,
Wow.
Which we knew. We were just like,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You've met Ava, right?
Oh, yeah. That was in December. We met them for the first time in March. And I'll tell you, it's so crazy. They're so gracious too. You can imagine we're walking through, like we're preparing for William's memorial, and there they are celebrating. Like she had been sick for so long. She was in heart failure. And so it was just really sweet how they walked through that time with us. And I remember they sent this huge, her kind of color was purple that they had. And they sent this huge flower arrangement that went on the top of our china cabinet, went from side to side, just down. And then they sent us amazing Ava bracelets that they had given out, the last little bit. And so the cool thing was at William's memorial, I was able to talk about Ava. And so even I remember my cousin was coming in and everything, and you talk about that, like, what do you say to someone? And I remember even I felt like, what do I say here with people coming in? And then I was able to say, like, has anyone told you about Ava? And it gave me something to talk about and share instead of just, thanks for coming because my son died, you know? So it was just all around such a gift. And so we flew up there in March and met them for the first time, met their whole family, 300 people. We we went to a fundraiser that they had for Ava. It was a scene. And we are, now they're some of our best friends. We see them at least every couple months. We do couples trips. We do family trips. We went on to have another little girl, Annie. So now Ella and Ava and Madeline and Annie are 4 little heart sisters. I mean, it is a story only God could write.
And you guys, in addition to donating William's organs, you something else kind of came out of this to keep his memory alive. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so as we were all having kids, my group, like we said, talked about our community, we had a really tight friend group. And as we started to have kids, our best friends, the Hamiltons, found out they could not have biological children. So we're walking through infertility with them and adoption. And then one of our friends earlier in 2015, Heather, she had just turned 30, found out she was diagnosed with breast cancer. So then we start walking through breast cancer treatments and stuff with her. And then in December is when William passed away. And then later that year in 2016, Heather relapsed. So it was just really heavy, hard things for us in our early 30 in our friend group. And we didn't know what to do. We didn't know what to say, but we were like, okay, we can just write notes to that person, and everyone write a couple notes, and we'll put them all together and put little kind of comfort items and everything, and we'll just give them a care package. So for the next 30 days, they have a note to read every day. So we did that when Jamie came back from Florida, when she adopted Jack, when Heather got diagnosed, when we came home that Monday from Vanderbilt. That was the first thing. I walked on my back porch and I was like, okay, well, it's my turn now. And I had this I had this amazing care package with all these notes of just, you are seen, you're loved, you're not alone. We're going to be here with you, and we're in this with you. And so 6 months after William died, I get a call from a friend that said her friend, Jenny Rebecca Springer, lost their 8-year-old son, Hayes, in a car accident. And they said, you know, what were some meaningful support that people did for you that we could do for Jenny Rebecca? So I kind of told them some things. And then I did that for Jenny Rebecca. I just wrote her a note and sent her a book that I loved. And I just said, I'm only 6 months ahead of you. This is really hard, but you are going to be okay. And I'm here if you need anything. And she reached out and called. And in the way as much community as we have, the way the Lord used that friendship, having both lost a child, was really powerful. And so a couple years later, we came together, the 4 of us, and we all had community, and we wanted to come together and make sure that women everywhere, no matter what they were walking through, knew they were loved, not alone, and there was hope in Jesus. Out of the community and love that we had, we knew not everyone had that, and we knew what a difference it would make. And so we were like, let's meet once a month on my back porch, and anyone that we hear about, because, you know, you kind of become the person that, I mean, still once a week, I'm like, people are like, did you hear about this child? Did you hear about this child? And you just kind of become people that people reach out to. And so we had all these women that we had heard about. And so that's what we did. We met once a month and decided to write notes, pray for them by name, and send them a little something. And so that quickly, after a few months, we were like, this could turn into something, and felt very called to start a nonprofit. And so we launched in 2019, Faithfully Restored, in August, and gathered our friends, and y'all were worship leaders at that event. And do you see a theme here? We're like, get on in here.
Big asks by the herds to the parties, and you guys say yes every time.
I know. It
That's
truly,
the theme.
it's like, this is so important. I want y'all there. And just with using your gifts and talents that are just so impactful to people. And so we launched that, and it's taken off ever since. Now we're a staff of 6 people. We have offices in Brentwood. We take in prayer requests from across the country, faithfullyrestoredwomen.com. And we're now up to 75 to 100 prayer requests a month. And so those are unique stories, women walking through a variety of things. We send out care packages and pray for them by name, but now provide financial support, pay mortgages, counseling grants, trips for grieving women. Truly,
yes.
like,
Beautiful.
we try to figure out, like, what is it that you need? And that's what we want to do, which looks different for every situation, for every person. And that's just what we want to do. So it's been amazing.
That's so good. I'm so proud of you guys. I'm just so proud of you. And because like everybody has their version of brokenness. You know, this is like, you know, man, the story is devastating, but everybody's got some version of like, I'm so broken. I need healing, and I can't stop these things from happening. I mean, if you could snap your finger and stop all of this from happening, you would. So, but you can't do that. So, where do you find the light in a story like this? Like, how do you have the faith to step forward and say, yeah, we're gonna start Faithfully Restored, and we're gonna tell this story on a podcast? Where does it come from?
I'll let her speak to, you know, where it came from to start an organization and do all that. But, you know, I would say I personally just had the privilege of growing up in an incredible, you know, Christian home. And so I've had faith in Jesus for, you know, since I was yay high. And I don't think you really have an understanding of the depth of your faith until it's tested, right? And so I could feel that because something like this causes you to have to confront some of those really difficult questions that you kind of breeze past because you don't need to. You don't really need to engage them,
Right.
But you know, I was grateful that foundation was there for me because and I had, you know, I think the most important thing truly was not me and like my, you know, grit my teeth and like I'm gonna glorify the Lord through this or anything like that. It was truly it was God's people around me is what it was. It was like nothing I did. It was like it was people that had, you know, a lot of love and care for me and my family and a deep faith, and they could see somebody struggling and they poured into us.
Wow. Thank God for it, man.
That was it. Yeah.
Yeah.
For God's people.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So-
I think for me, you know, 3 months before our wedding, my dad killed himself. And so that was the first time that my faith had really been tested. And I didn't handle that the same way I did when I lost William. That peace that I felt when I lost William, when my dad called me and said that he loved me and just wanted me to know he loved me and stuff, and then hung up the phone and shot himself. My reaction to that, I was so mad at God. I was like, here I am praying for your will to be done. I'm about to get married. And this is what you have for me? Like a good God, this is what you have for me? And I was so mad. And so it really took those next couple of years after losing my dad to really deepening my faith. I grew up in church, but I hadn't really been faced with anything of like, you know, the suffering that it talks about in the Bible. Like, yeah, people suffer, but it'll be fine.
Yeah.
But until I felt that deep suffering, and then I was like, actually, Lord, if this is what you have for me, I don't really want it. This is painful and hurts and not what I want. And so there was a lot of growth between my dad died in 2008 and we lost William in 2015. And there was a lot of growth in my faith. And it came from surrounding myself with godly people, a church that preached the Bible, and a true surrender. When I had been praying for God's will to be done before my dad died, it was like this. And I was like holding my hands like, I really want your will to be done, but really only if it matches my will. Yeah. Like your will, like to me marry Daniel, yes, I'm in. Like, thank you, Lord. Like, this is your will. I long to be married. But then when that happened, it was like, I'm not really here for this. And so really what changed is my faith deepened and I surrendered. And I was like, Lord, I cannot do it. I truly want what you want. And so that's what came to mind whenever they told me that he had choked and he wasn't breathing. I'm like, okay, Lord, I truly want what you want and whatever it is because I knew he'd get me through it. Absolutely. Where that first time I didn't. And so for me, I think a surrender, and even starting Faithful Restored, the 4 founders didn't have any we don't have any nonprofit experience. And so it was a true surrender of like, okay, Lord, if you want us to do this, like we don't know what we're doing actually. Yeah. And as soon as we surrendered and are like, Lord, whatever you have for Faithful Restored, he's like, just do the next thing. I've got you. And we're 5 years later and we're going to hit $1 million this year. And it's like, okay, Lord, like I have seen his goodness over and over again, where now I have such an eternal perspective of like, this world is not my home. Yeah. I'm not living for it. Like I pray for Jesus to come back a lot. And so I think for me, that surrender of like, I can't do it on my own. I know I can't. Yeah. But it's only because of him.
Jamie, how do people find Faithfully Restored?
Yes.
If they want to help.
FaithfullyRestoredWomen.com.
Okay.
You can go on there. You can submit a prayer request for anyone, for a woman anywhere walking through something. And we would love to serve them, pray for them, encourage them.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay.
Yeah.
This was been Daniel and Jamie Hurd. Great story. Greatness of God. Thanks everybody for listening. Yeah. And we pray for people that need prayer for their marriage. If you're going through something like Jamie and Daniel have been through, or whatever struggle you're facing, Heather and I, we pray every week for marriages. We keep prayer requests anonymous. You can reach out hi at carlandheather.com with your prayer request. It's totally anonymous. We won't say anything about it to anyone, but we will say something about it to the Lord and pray for you. And reach out to us. Thanks for listening. We love you guys.
Together on purpose.
Together on purpose. That's what we say at the end.
Yes.
You got to do a fist
Thanks
bump.
for having us.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Love y'all.
Love you too.
Yeah.